Hey guys, glad that you were able to come here. Just for those of you that are watching live, I just want to make sure that you understand exactly what we're doing today. We are going to be talking about franchising. If you are here or as you come in, feel free to ask any questions because if you have them, I believe today's guest will be more than qualified to actually answer them. So, also, for those of you watching, we have a podcast in iTunes and Stitcher and various other places. You can just go to CashFlowDiaryPodcast.com if you want to go ahead and subscribe to that so you can hear the edited version of everything that comes out today, which is another way of saying that for those of you joining us in the live environment right now, you likely are getting a little bit more than those who come and hear the edited part later. So it's all good either way, but let's make sure that we are in a position to do our best to participate, to understand, and just to continue to grow and build that cash flow. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit this down, although from time to time, you guys know I'll pick it up because that's where my notes are. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the CashFlow Diary podcast. My name is Jay Massey, and welcome to the show today. And I'm glad that you have decided to come because you and we are going to learn about something that we typically don't talk much about. Now, yes, we're going to talk about cash flow, but we're specifically going to talk about a way to build it that honestly, I do not mention because I know very little. I mean, I know these things exist. I've considered them, but I haven't really dug in deep enough to actually go, I think that might make sense for me. But more importantly, if you are like millions of Americans and people across the globe right now, you could be looking for a way to keep building your cash flow. But that in and of itself, the concept of starting a business can feel like more of a risk than you want to take. But what better way than to start with a proven system? And then becomes the question, which proven system should I choose? How do I make this work? But I heard this about franchises and I've heard that. Is this true? And well, today's guest is literally the man. Some people call him the franchise fanatic because not only does he help other entrepreneurs like myself and you find our way into franchises, he also runs them himself. What does that mean? That means he owns them. He has been there. He has been all the way, knees to the grindstone, belly to belly with customers in his own franchises. And what that simply means is that he's got all the wisdom, all the experience to help you, to help me, to help us get to that end destination. I am, of course, talking about none other than Lance Graulich. He is the founder and CEO of Ion Franchising, which is an industry-leading franchise consulting and development group that represents over 500 franchise brands. Now, just think about this for a second. Did you know that there were even 500? Did you know that there were 100? I don't know. In fact, he's got a special gift for you and I that will likely help you uncover the perfect franchise industry for you. So here's what we need to do. Right now, we're going to do our best to focus, to pay attention, to make sure that, you know what, even if the kids are making too much noise, we're going to ignore it right now and take some notes because your cash flow depends on it. So let's get ready to learn, listen, and love Lance Graulich. Lance, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Jay. Nice to see you. Thank you for that nice welcome.
You are quite welcome, sir. I'm glad that you're here. This has been a conversation that is literally long time coming, and I'm glad that we've been able to connect. Now, this being your first time here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else the first time that they're here. You ready?
Uh-oh, I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like, yesterday's superheroes, Batman, Robin, Wonder Woman. You get the idea. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a number of things in common. For example, as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself quite easily, yes, wearing a cape, but also saving customers one sale at a time. However, just like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. There was a time where Spider-Man was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, taking some photos, hoping to make a little extra money to get some pizza and take Mary Jane on a date. Then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers, oh my gosh, I've got something special. I get to choose whether to use it now for good or for evil. And then he becomes what we know as Spider-Man. So my question to you is as follows. Before your company, Ion Franchising, before owning your own franchises, before representing in over 500 different ones, what we want to know is, who is Lance Graulich?
So we're going way back. How far back you want me to go on that?
We could go all the way back to embryo if you'd like. If you remember that, please tell us.
So, I grew up in New York, and Wall Street family, and you mentioned various ways to make cash flow, obviously, and your primary business being real estate related. People think of Wall Street, they think of real estate, and then I think third, as far as cash flow, it's all about franchising. But I grew up in a Wall Street family. I realized at a young age that I needed some people interaction, went into the restaurant business, joined a good close friend of the family. And I moved out west, went to Arizona, and we built a huge TGI Fridays franchise. And it was, call it my master's degree in restaurants and franchising at an early age. We ended up doing 65 restaurants, doing $225 million a year. That kept me on the West Coast. And over the years, it was all about franchising. I realized this is a great system. You get handed a system that's proven, training, marketing. There's just a way of making a living through this specific vehicle. So I loved it. I fell in love with it, and went on and did Krispy Kreme donuts with a partner. Was invited into that partnership as the operating partner, managing partner, and loved it. Got to stay away from all those donuts these days, although I still create concepts for people. And I'm helping a Food Network star create a donut concept as we speak. So that's opening soon in Las Vegas. But I got bit by the bug of creating businesses. So I've owned quite a few franchises. I've created quite a few successful concepts. And I love helping people. Now, you asked about my superhero character. And, I would say that's an easy one for me because I have made so many mistakes, and I now have the vision. I know. So think of Superman. I have that X-ray vision because I've been there, done that. I've screwed it up once, hopefully not twice. The old mistake, the old cliche, you never want to make the same mistake twice. And that is exactly it for me. And my goal for my clients is not to have them make the mistakes that I've made. Whether it is you have the wrong partner, whether you're undercapitalized. So yes, the vision, or the X-ray vision, I might call it in my business, because I have a lot of people that call me and say, I want to open a restaurant. And I hear their backstory and realize it's not going to work for them. Maybe they have no experience. Maybe they're ill-equipped as far as they're not capitalized properly. Maybe they're in the wrong city for that. Maybe they're in the wrong, some people call me and they want a burger restaurant. Well, there's always a time to start a restaurant, maybe not midstream in a pandemic when you don't have your dining room open and you don't have access to all of the customers that you might have access to afterwards. So, needless to say, my vision through the mistakes that I've made over the years, that'll be in my book sometime soon, that is really beneficial to my clients.
Got it.
I would say that's a fair representation.
So, okay, I've got a ton of questions now.
Go for it. We have time, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Because, between myself and those that are watching us live, there may be quite a few questions, but I know I have many at this particular moment in time, because there's a number of things that you have mentioned that will likely elicit some of the common misconceptions or things that people could think or just not know that they don't know. But there was something that really, really stuck out to me, is like you said that they don't have experience. And in my head, I'm like, well, of course they don't have experience, right? That's why they're looking at a franchise.
Right.
I don't have any experience changing oil in a car, but I could still have a franchise that does that, right?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. It's a perfect question because it just depends on the franchise they're choosing.
I see.
There are some franchises in the restaurant industry that will not accept you as a franchisee
Mhm.
unless you or your partner have a certain amount of experience. It's all depending on your resume.
Hmm.
In some cases, it doesn't have to be restaurant experience, but it has to be a certain amount of life experience to ensure that you can handle it. I'll give you a perfect example. Many, many years ago, I had a relative come to me and say, I want to do a Mako paint and auto body. He
Okay.
contacted me. He contacted Mako. It happens to be in our portfolio, by the way. He contacted Mako, and when Tony was alive, the founder of Mako, amazing gentleman. You know, my relative did not have the resume to support a franchise like Mako. He had the finances. So what he did was he came to me and said, can I be a partner? Because my resume was sufficient as a partner. So we went up to King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, where Mako was based, did the visit, did the discovery day, and he became a Mako franchisee. I should say we became a Mako franchisees. He was the operating partner, and I made sure he was on track, and it did well. And
So, okay, so hold on 1 second. Let me ask a
yeah,
detail, because couldn't I just why can't I just hire someone who has that experience
you
as why do you
absolutely could. You absolutely
Oh,
could.
okay.
There are plenty of franchises depending on, well, let's lay it out. There's what's called the owner operator, where you are going to actually be the owner operator. And if it's a big franchise, like a brand that's, let's say, very, very well known, not very many territories left in the United States, they're going to be highly selective of who they're putting in place. And if you have no proven business experience, they might choose somebody else. A lot of people come to me and they think, I'm going to choose what franchise I join. Well, it's a two-way street. It's like a marriage, it's a relationship. You know, they get to choose who they want to be franchisees, and you get
Mhm.
to pick what franchise you want to join if they'll have you as well. But you know, the bottom line is I mentioned the owner operator model. Then there's the semi absentee model, where when I was with Krispy Kreme, there was a lot of that. The investors came in that had a lot of money, and they hired an operator that had equity, that had skin in the game, because Krispy Kreme mandated that a partner had to have a minimum amount of equity involved, skin in the game.
Mhm, mhm.
And then the investor did not have to participate necessarily in the day to day as long as things were on track, you know. So, nevertheless, the answer to your question is it depends on the brand. Most of my brands, you don't necessarily need any experience. You have to have the financial wherewithal, you have to have the aptitude and attitude and skills from the past to to prove that you were successful in something before, no matter what it was, that they'll believe that you're going to be successful in their brand, period.
Okay, so when you say successful in something, um, could that have been, someone maybe middle management, or C-level
Absolutely.
executive, et cetera, but just like no independent business experience, but mostly W-2 type of income, but now ready to take that leap?
Yeah, I mean, look, people come from all walks of life into franchising. There are
Got it.
tons of corporate executives that have a 20-year plus history. I work with those people all the time. And in fact, I have a deal closing next week that will be a gentleman that was 28-year history at a major rent-a-car concept, and helped build up, most of the country for this rental car brand over the years. So those skills are absolutely transferable in the new business related, in the new franchise business that he's taking on. Um, the franchise has to believe in you. You have to believe in the franchise. There are still plenty of people that join the franchise world that maybe, didn't have a big resume, but there has to be a resume of success. You can't take somebody on that maybe just had a bankruptcy and can't show that there was some sort of history of success in the past. Personal references are important. Do you have somebody to say that Jay Massey would be good as a Great Clips franchisee?
That's haircut?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, they're not saying that one. Just like the car thing. But
And by the way, Jay, there's a perfect example. Hair salons.
yeah.
People that get into hair salons, they don't have to know how to cut hair. I could tell you
Oh, okay.
countless examples of people that are business people, smart people. You have to have the financial wherewithal. Typical salons are 160,000 open a small little franchise hair salon, 160 to 200,000 open one. And
Is that,
you
hold on,
don't-
was that with the real estate or without the real estate?
without the real estate.
Okay, go ahead.
Typical strip center, maybe where a grocery store is, supermarket type, anchor.
Mhm.
And you don't have to know how to cut hair. You're not a beautician. You're not a cosmetologist. You're not even going to pretend you know how to cut hair. But
No.
you have to show that although there's plenty of beauticians at home right now. My wife cut my hair. It doesn't look too bad.
Hey, we're doing what we can.
Exactly.
Doing what we can.
But there's a classic example. You don't need to have experience in the salon business prior to becoming a franchisee. The idea of franchising, that almost anybody can pick various franchises that they would be quite good at and find the right franchisor that is willing to take on somebody with little to no experience, even at all, even if your resume is not strong enough. It's all about attitude and the skills that you present. Somebody that might have a great sales background, is someone that I can find many franchises for. But the bottom line is there is a franchise for everybody. If you are persistent, you get with someone like myself, I can guide you, because the problem today, Jay, is there's 5,000 plus franchises out there. There's no way to do enough Google searches to find what is most suitable for you. Right. There's no one list that you're going to find that's going to help you.
Wow. Okay. That's a little overwhelming. Wow. That's just overwhelming in its thought process. Like, okay, only 5,000 to choose from, which would mean that you have like a 0.002% chance of getting the right one with any one of those decisions in that situation. But here becomes the question, though, is because you said something that I think a number of people are going to be considering and or have to go through, especially given today's economic climate. You said something about if someone just had a bankruptcy. I think there's going to be, because a number of small business owners or personal or what have you, there are going to be we'll call it an increased number of people who may have the skill sets, but because of everything and how it has gone down and how long recovery takes, bankruptcy might become an option for them that they choose. Does that automatically mean they just can't, there's nothing there for them?
It doesn't, because at the end of the day, I have franchises. My job is to find a franchise that will fit them and they will be successful in, period. Now, a recent bankruptcy means that you will not be able to get SBA financing through the Small Business Administration.
Got it.
Typically, last I checked, 3 years. Your bankruptcy, You have to be out of bankruptcy. It has to be done as of 3 years prior.
Got it.
Minimum credit score, by the way, for franchise financing is low. It's only 680. It's not like they're asking for 750 and above. But it really becomes up to the franchisor. If they find a typical franchisor wants the right person, number one, the right individual that they believe that's going to be successful within their franchise system, that's going to fit in within their company culture. And if somebody had a recent bankruptcy but has the cash, there's definitely a possibility of them becoming a franchisee for many brands. You just can't get the financing. And quite honestly, there's plenty of people that partner up with someone that is the right fit, per se, on paper at the moment. Bankruptcy is certainly not a life sentence. It's just, it's failure is my old expression. Failure is an event, not a person. Yeah, and it was one thing that just happened.
So when it comes down to it, when you look at, say, the current economic climate, I think for a lot of people, one of the things that it should be on the list of consideration is getting a business started in some way, shape, or form. That in order to help provide for not only your economic future, but giving you more than one point of failure and just having, just more certainty from a financial standpoint, starting a business makes sense. Now, I'm going to ask you the question you're asked probably hundreds of times a day. Why specifically a franchise, any franchise? Why that model?
Well, that's a really easy answer. If you're going to start your own business, if anybody starts their own business, there's an enormous amount of risk because you're doing something, you're creating a brand that no one's ever heard of. When you start a franchise, think of when you started CashFlowDiary, when nobody heard of it in the beginning.
Yes.
It's incredible the uphill battle to get recognized these days. So with a franchise, you're getting into something that is proven, that does have a system, that does have support, that does have training. And you are checking out with me. I am your advocate. Some of my clients ask for lots of help, and I'm happy to provide that. I participate in phone calls with various brands so I can hear firsthand what is troubling a candidate, But here is the kicker. Every franchise disclosure document, now we're getting into the legal stuff. This is the fun stuff. Every franchise brand needs to provide what's called a franchise disclosure document, commonly called FDD for short. In each FDD, there's 23 items, they call it, from what it costs. And these aren't projections. These are facts. What did it cost? Such and such brand cost anywhere from $150,000 to $190,000 to start. Those are based on actual franchisees' startup costs, including some working capital and what have you. So when you're looking at a proven brand, not only do you have what's called an item 19, which is the financial representations, or in the old days, it was called the earnings claim. It's still called an earnings claim. What are they claiming for sales, for margins? It's essentially telling you. I was looking at an earnings claim the other day. This will blow your mind right now. This is a completely recession-proof business that's very hot in our portfolio. Plenty of territory available left in the United States. It'll cost $70,000 tops to start. Home-based. It's business-to-business consulting. And it's proven. They have franchisees that net $1 million a year. You heard me right. Not everybody does. There are people that don't do the work. Everybody has different work ethic. So the bottom line is there are plenty of franchisees that are making $250,000, $350,000, $500,000 a year with this brand. So not only do you
hold on, is that year one?
Well, they have different stages. So to your question, I'll give you a specific one I looked at yesterday for a client. I have a staffing company that tells you about $150,000 or so to start. Within 5 years, you'll do $6 million a year in sales with this staffing company. Not income, but sales. So as an example, that is in their earnings claim. Big brand. So back to what I was suggesting, the FDD has an item 19. If somebody is risk averse and has too large of a comfort zone, if you know what I mean, they want to keep the risk minimal, I will only show brands that have a really strong item 19 so you can really feel comfortable that the success rate is going to be extremely high. And if you're only investing $70,000, what's the worst thing that happens? You only make $150,000 a year? You okay with that? but here's the kicker, Jay. Wow. To answer the last part. You have the ability, we call in the franchise world, that's called validation. Even though you have the numbers that are in the item 19 that show the earnings claim, you now have the ability, and every great brand ensures the last step for you, or the second to last step in some cases, is that validation where you can call on a list of their franchisees and call and say, Jay, I heard you're a franchisee of such and such. They gave me your number. I would like to know, and you can ask them anything. They're not bound by there's no confidentiality. And if you have a franchisee that wants to share, they're going to tell you the truth. And you can call a number of franchisees And a franchisee might tell you, I spoke to a franchisee of one of these staffing companies the other day, and he told me he nets $385,000 a year consistently. Now, staffing is not the best thing to get into in the middle of a pandemic, but it'll come back at some point. So you have to have that forethought, and guys like me can certainly help answer those questions. So continuing on.
Okay, so I've got
more questions, perhaps.
I do, because my brain is like, okay, that which is the major reason I use this is to stop me from interrupting you, so I can write stuff down.
No worries.
But it is crazy. So when you were talking about these numbers, or when I'm looking at it, we mentioned earlier, you mentioned the two forms of ownership. You mentioned an owner operator, then you mentioned semi-absentee. Please, okay, is there 100%? I don't want to be there absentee version?
Absolutely.
Oh,
well, there's a couple of ways to do that. I have, while we represent so many franchise brands, I have an incredibly hot, it's a water company that is 100% absentee owned. You literally do nothing. And right now, their proven methodology. And by the way, listen, any veterans out there, these guys have an incredible program for veterans. And it could be, you can be active duty because you're truly doing nothing. They'll set you up with a great loan, veteran incentives. You'll put down so little money and you'll net the past history 20% plus annualized, and you're doing nothing. So there are many other absentee-owned businesses. Now, there are a lot of businesses like a candidate I just have a deal that we're doing now. They're going to work hard for a year and a half and put somebody in place to run that business. So not a bad gig, right?
No, not at all. I just don't want to work. I never want to work in the business personally. That's just a me thing. I want to do what I do, which is over here, and then maybe buy some other types of things over there. And you're saying that to a degree that's possible.
Absolutely. I have a hair salon chain right now. I sell that. Refer that to people on a regular basis, 100% absentee owned. I have a restaurant, believe it or not, a restaurant that is doing incredibly well. And believe it or not, yes. And they also have a system. We can talk about that I have a great one to talk about that has actually increased sales. They did high volume downtown Atlanta prior to the pandemic, and their sales actually increased on some days because they were doing so much positive PR for the community, community activists helping out all the hospitals that needed much needed food. But yeah, there's a salon chain, 100% absentee owned, that's performs incredibly well in our portfolio. The restaurant group that I'm referring to, they have the ability, they've recognized there's plenty of entrepreneurs that want to get in the restaurant business that maybe are scared of it. So they created a system where they actually manage your restaurant for you for a period of time with you. So, it's like training wheels. It's very positive, amazing, and it works.
Okay. And for those of you listening and watching, you're realizing that I am being brought into this world. I did not know, Lance, that these things existed. I mean, because in my head, one of the conceptions that I had was something, for lack of a better way of putting it, it's okay, cool. I pay a fee. They give me a really big book and say, good luck. And maybe, they send me a lead every now and again, and I got to go make it happen. But that is not the impression I'm getting at this particular moment from what you're saying.
You know what, Jay, when technology really became big about 10 years ago or so, it's amazing what, even moving companies in our portfolio, what they've been able to now do with technology. I mean, what happens? People go to the internet and search. I need to move. I need to move from California to Florida. Who do I call? And so the brands are doing the search engine optimization and the Google keywords and what have you, and capturing those leads now for franchisees. In the old days, it was the yellow pages, perhaps, but technology is playing a key part in everything. If you're a local small business, it's kind of difficult these days because the bigger companies, the bigger franchise brands are capturing the technology, whether it's the latest app to make to reserve your time for a haircut that the smaller hair salons, mom and pop hair salons can't afford. But keep in mind, all franchisees are mom and pops.
Yeah.
So they're your neighbors as well. These aren't just big corporations.
So before I ask my next question, I just want to make sure that everyone knows. Yellow Pages, there was a book a long time ago that used to come around and it was just yellow. So for those of you who've never seen one of those, that's what it was. And businesses were listed
already. I remember the covered wagon.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to make sure you leave nobody behind. Absolutely. So I've also heard of a thing called a co-op. How is a franchise different?
Well, you're talking about licensing deals specifically, or which part of our
where some and the only example that I really have that comes across my mind is how certain maybe farmers or food producers get together and they work as a cooperative, for all intents and purposes, pooling their purchasing power and doing things of that nature. And there are elements of what you're describing that, remind me of that. And I'm just wondering what might be different.
That is exactly right. There are plenty of elements of franchising that are, and again, the short-term co-op is really a cooperative working together, and farming is a perfect example of what franchising is, because, what any good franchise does is what they will do is they'll negotiate everything for you. They'll have pricing. They'll tell you where to buy everything. They'll negotiate the best price points. The reason you buy a franchise, they've done the research. They've done their homework over the years. They have somebody to tell you where to buy the uniforms from and get the best deal. But at the end of the day, especially in the restaurant business, they're going to negotiate the best pricing, the best products, the best methodology to get the work done, and include a training program to back that whole thing up. So you're not having to go through that sort of R&D that costs time and money. When you start a new restaurant, there's an awful lot of, I've opened plenty of restaurants. I opened another donut brand called Pink Box in Las Vegas that became pretty famous and well known, and it's expanding like crazy. I got bought out of that. I have ADD. I need to get in and get out. And I like doing the hard stuff. I like doing the heavy lifting in the beginning. I love to see the baby grow up. So, but it's a very cooperative nature in the world of franchising. But there is truly a brand for everybody. That's the best part.
So, okay, let's take that. When you say there's a brand for everybody, that presupposes that regardless of my education level, skill set, et cetera, that there's there's an industry that's there for me. What are some of those, I'll say, industries or types of franchises, if you will, that typically go unnoticed, unheard of, that people are like, really? Like that? Like that's a franchise?
It's a fantastic question. Look, before the pandemic, when anybody was surveyed about what's hot in the franchise world, restaurants are always at the top of the list. There's something sexy or perceived as sexy about owning a restaurant for people. I know, Jay, you give me that look.
Well, that's low. When you say restaurant, I think low margin, long hours, a lot of employees. Why would I want that? That's me. But
that's what a lot of people say. And I have half my inquiries these days are still restaurant related.
Okay.
And however, through the pandemic at this point, I have plenty of people that own 80 or more restaurants of something, different brands, that are interested in diversifying. So as a matter of fact, I got a call yesterday from a gentleman in the Northeast. Money is no object. Lance, what should I be doing right now that's not in the restaurant business? And the answer to your question, as well as his, commercial cleaning is an example. Commercial cleaning. As soon as offices start to reopen, people start going back, and even still, there are commercial cleaning companies, especially through the pandemic, that have always been hot, but they go unnoticed because they're not necessarily as sexy. There's master franchise territories where you can put people underneath you, so to speak, within that territory. You don't have to work terribly hard. There is an investment up front. But I have some commercial cleaning franchises. You can buy a master territory for just, $95,000. And you're in business as a master. And, so commercial cleaning is one. Things like automotive. People still need to fix their cars. People still need to get an oil change. Now, these days, we haven't been driving as much, but nevertheless, that's why gas prices were down, because nobody's buying gas. The restoration business, we have quite a few restoration businesses, and what I'm talking about is, God forbid there's a hurricane or your house gets flooded. We have an amazing brand that's solely exterior restoration, but there's a lot of interior restoration brands. We have fires, smoke damage, mold remediation, restoration brands. You don't even need construction experience at all. Just like that hair salon example I gave you. You don't know how to need to know how to cut hair. You have to have the ability and aptitude to show the brand that you can do it, which the first call typically determines.
Okay. So, as I'm listening to you, there's a part of me that's going, this sounds simple to do, like easy. Like, why do we not hear more about franchises? Am I just deaf and there's been a megaphone and I've not heard it? What's going on?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because a lot of people see McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or Popeyes, and they see all of those things. They are on prominent corners of America, every street corner. And those are the franchises that people know exist. And the perception is, in my opinion, that, hey, those are really expensive undertakings. I'm never going to be able to own that. And the reality is there's a lot of people that can't afford to get into that particular franchise. But like commercial cleaning, unless a van passes you that has a certain name on it, you might not even notice, especially if you don't own an office that needs to be cleaned. So there are a lot of brands that do go unnoticed. Franchising, look, surveys have shown over the years that everybody in America, a large percentage of America, wants to be their own boss. Many people won't take the first step to ever be their own boss. And that's okay. It's just what it is. It's good to have hopes and dreams. I can make the dreams come true for the people that truly want to do it. But like anything, sadly, there are people that want to lose weight. And what happens? I knew I was going to laugh at that,
Uh-oh. You're about to get in trouble. You go down there, man.
How many people join a gym and don't go?
Well, nobody's going right now. But yes, I hear exactly what you're saying. I'm messing with you, though. But yeah, there's a lot.
You are correct. There are a lot of people. There are a lot of misconceptions about the franchise industry. There are a lot of brands. I have a lot of franchises that are under $100,000. And if you have a 680 credit score, you can get financing for as little as 25% down, potentially even less. So that's incredible. Almost anybody in America. I had a guy, he and his wife were bus people in Las Vegas. They worked in restaurants as bus people in the union in Las Vegas. They saved their money. They had $100,000. I got them a franchise. That it's possible that anybody can get a franchise if they save some money and they have the work ethic and desire to be their own boss. But many people don't take the first step. I get hundreds of inquiries every month, Jay, and I can't get people inquired with me and they don't answer the phone. They don't answer the email. I now have a great new text system, which I love because I love people that tell me, oh, I'm no longer interested. Well, you just inquired yesterday. What happened? You got a franchise or you got scared? Fear is real. Yes. People are scared out of their mind. And that is why most people don't take the first step. I'm free. I get paid by the brands. I can give you advice. I can help you. And you might not be ready today, but you will be ready soon enough. It might be a year or two.
I can tell you this. I know the one thing that has consistently, every time I've gone down or even considered the franchise thing, is that I hear okay, and this is kind of how I slant anyway. You can't have just one if you really want to make this work. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I wanted a lot more than one anyway.
Right.
And I don't know what I don't know about the due diligence process. But as I'm listening to you, I'm like, I think what you're saying is you kind of are there to help that process along, and help make that happen.
Well, you asked another great question, Jay. There are brands that I have that are franchises that have oversized territories, and you don't need more than one.
Oh,
You don't. You don't. Fast Signs is an example. Fast Signs is one of the best franchises out there.
Company?
The sign company. You get one. They will tell you. There's somebody that came to me recently who wanted to have multiple Fast Signs. Fast Signs will tell you no. Fast Signs will say add on to your building. If you can, but you don't need more than one. As a franchisee, you can continue to expand and grow your existing sign shop, period. But in the restaurant business, it is pretty well known. To get wealthy in the restaurant business, it's not about one. It's definitely multiples.
Got it.
It's absolutely multiples in the restaurant business. There are many business-to-business type franchises. I mentioned the cleaning franchise. You can buy one master territory. That's plenty. There are people making a sizable income off of that. You can buy one territory for various staffing companies. That is absolutely sufficient.
Huh. Interesting. This is like literally a brand new world. New opportunity is on the horizon. And I know that there's probably a number of people who have listened this far who are beginning to see a possibility for themselves. I know that you've prepared something for all of us that we can download to begin to take this exploration further and possibly introduce us to new industries that we haven't heard of before. I'm curious, can you tell us a little bit more about the document?
Yeah, well, in my first conversation with anybody, I always ask them, have you investigated franchises before? And if the answer is no, then they might not know that there are potentially 400 different sort of categories or line items of franchises. So that is the document we're talking about, the free PDF to show people all of the possibilities within the franchise world. So it's helpful to get your mind opened wide. Mindset is everything. Would you not say that, Jay? Would that?
Yeah, 100%. Especially right now, in order to be willing to take the risk, you have to be a certain person who understands these types of things. But the part that I'm excited about is if there's 400 industries, that means there's just a lot of underserved, undermentioned, probably even undervalued opportunities that actually exist that we wouldn't find out about any other way.
Yeah, I mean, people certainly come with their preconceived thought process or notions as to, I want to own this type of franchise or that type of franchise, in which case I always ask permission. Well, Jay, would you mind if I present a brand or two to you that I think are most suitable for you? And oftentimes, 99% of the time, people say, well, absolutely, Lance, you're the expert in this. Tell me what you think I should be doing based on what I presented. And I always ask about what is their income level, their investment level, their desired investment level. Are they interested in a loan? Are they, because I have partners for all of that. You can certainly come with your own lender, but I can help with all of the financing needs. But, we talk about desired market, where do they want to open this? I have people that are in the process of moving. But nevertheless, there's a brand for everybody that fits your parameters, your skills. I talk to some people on the phone that say they're not salespeople, but they sound fantastic. They're articulate. They're friendly. And those are people that it's not necessarily, some brands are not hard sells where you have to have any divisive sales tactics in franchising. But, being able to sell is helpful when you get into certain franchises and you have to feel comfortable. But
I can imagine that, Nope, Krispy Kreme has never had a hard time with me in any way, shape, or form. I don't ever,
Sugar
ooh,
cells,
the
Jay.
light's on. That's, ooh, time to go. I mean, it's not that
Sugar
hard.
cells. There's the hot light. There you go.
That is all it takes. So for those of you listening, you want to pick up that document, begin this process, take this journey. You want to go over to cashflowdiary.com/franchise, FRANCHISE. Why? Because after you put in your information, including your phone number, what'll happen is that Lance will be able to help you continue this process and has an assessment that you should absolutely take advantage of. So again, get over to cashflowdiary.com/franchise. Begin to open up your mind. As you have heard today, my mind is being expanded, and you guys know me. You already can hear that there's likely something happening in the background. So obviously you're going to want to stay tuned. Now, Lance, as we wind down here, I've got a final question for you because I'm really curious to hear your answer, given what you do, the franchises you own and owned, the people you help. I mean, there's a number of people listening who probably have made it to what I like to call the precipice of decision. They're at that point, where they go, well, shoot, I mean, if this Lance guy's right, I mean, I might as well try. I can do this. And as a human, we often, when we get to that spot, what we have is we have a companion. That companion comes in the form of a voice, and it's a voice that reminds us, oh, wait a minute, there's a pandemic. Are you, I know you're going to start a business. You remember what happened last time? And for some people, they're related to that voice. Absolutely. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to do exactly what you suggest. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
Well, the first step with me is, besides going to cashflowdiary.com/franchise, get the categories laid out to get your mind opened up and thinking about possibilities. I'll be reaching out to you if you're there because I'll have your contact information. So my first phone call, though, is all about who is really making this decision. Are you the sole decision maker in your future? And if you're not, let's say you have a spouse or you have someone very near and dear to you, get them participating in the phone calls with myself. It's all about trust building. Even though you don't pay me anything as a prospective franchisee, you need to trust me. You need to trust that I'm giving you good advice. And at the end of the day, I get to introduce you to the brands that I know are most suitable for you. If you have someone in your life that is concerned about your future and needs to participate, then by all means have them participate in this process. Because what could happen down the road as you're excited about a brand and ready to sign on the dotted line, your dreams can be derailed by that family member that you didn't keep apprised and updated as to what endeavor you were about to take on. Yeah. So that's my recommendation. I can't control that. In life, there's two categories: controllables and uncontrollables. And I can control what brands that I'm showing you that you're going to be successful with, but I cannot control what goes on in your household or your life. But I'm happy to give you advice on all of the above.
Man, I absolutely appreciate it when an expert, an individual, a practitioner is willing to share wisdom, knowledge, experience, and make sure that others can make the best decision that's possible for them, given the resources that they have. And if nothing else, I just want to be the first to say thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your insight here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
You are quite welcome. Thank you so much for having me on today. Sharing is caring, right, Jay?
100%. All right, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to cashflowdiary.com/franchise, because you heard what I heard, right? You got excited just like I got excited. You're probably still excited, and for good reason. It's because opportunity has just presented itself in a way that you maybe did not consider, but yet we're still hoping for. And I hope you heard many things, as in it does not require any money, currency from your pocket to download the book or talk to Lance. That is not normal. That's not every day that you run into an expert who's willing to share their time with you, with anyone that believes they've got what it takes to make it happen. And if you're like, you know what, I still don't even know what industry, Jay, I totally understand. That's why we have 400 choices. And the book, the PDF, is available for you. Just go to cashflowdiary.com/franchise, get on the phone with Lance, and I look forward to hearing about you building your cash flow on your journey. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.